Man, I did not expect to come here and get absolutely diddled. I am in trouble. Alrighty, let's see if I can... Oh, Jesus Christ! Well, that did not go as planned. Alrighty, guys. A few days ago, I made a video comparing Destiny 2 and Warframe, and basically comparing the narrative and saying what Destiny 2 could borrow or learn from Warframe to help kind of get them back on the right foot. Today, I'm actually going to do the opposite. I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to look at a couple things that Warframe could take from Destiny and really, I think, make improve the game quite a bit. Primarily, we're going to look at the PvP perspective of Warframe, since we all know Conclave is pretty much dead. We're going to look at a couple ways that we could improve it, and I think a certain game mode coming from Destiny, it wasn't super successful there. It had some of the sand, sure, but it wasn't super successful. I think would be a lot more successful inside of Warframe. The question is just how you would implement it. But my name is Vault Zero. Welcome back to the channel, guys, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. So basically, I'm going to break this down into 3 parts, and I will timestamp it, of course. 3 different modes, 2 of which I think are unique ideas, and 1 is going to be a mode pretty much ripped right out of Destiny. Like I said, I think it'll be a great fit for Warframe. So we'll keep that. We'll save that one for last. But I think first off, what will be a really fun mode is if you go to Duviri and you fight the newer Warframe Colosseum, at least newish. He was added in the Duviri Paradox expansion. But anyway, there's a little Colosseum there, and that's his arena. And I think what would be a fun idea is if you had a team of 4 go in, and you had them fight Colosseum style as gladiators, and you could have about 10 waves, 10 being the final, boss wave. What you would do is you would spawn in, you'd have your team, you would set your loadout kind of similar to how you do in Duviri now, except for that wouldn't be Warframes, it would be Drifter only, and you would be able to temporarily use any of the Duviri melee weapons that you wanted to use, even if you didn't own them for Platinum. Now, obviously, you'd have to buy them for Platinum if you wanted to use them in any of the other Duviri experience sections. But for this mode in particular, it would be possible to use them temporarily, any of them. But the thing is, they would be unmodded. That way, everyone's on equal footing, if that makes any sense. And what you would do is you fight 9 waves of difficult gladiators, and as you went further and further, you have different challenges. You would have Eximus spawning and whatnot, the Eximus Dax and whatnot. You'd have the archers to fight, and they would just get tougher and tougher, right? And then you would reach a point where you would get to the 10th wave. And the thing is about the Gladiator Arena is that there can only be 1 winner. So at that point, you would be swarmed with waves of extremely high-leveled Dax, as well as PvP would be enabled, and you would have to fight your teammates that are with you. Everyone should be on even footing. There are no Warframes, there are no mods on the weapons, there will be no decrees. So I think that would be cool, and I think what would be really cool is if they took a little bit from For Honor, and if it was like a For Honor like melee combat system. Duviri's combat system is kind of like that, but I feel like they could push it a little further in that direction to really give you the gladiator feel. I think that would be really cool to do. It'd be a little hard for 4 people fighting at once. You'd have to worry about getting ganked, I guess. But I don't know. I don't really see that happening. It doesn't really seem like something that would happen in the Warframe community. Not to say that there aren't toxic people in all communities, of course. But of all the games that I've played, especially all the live service games I've played, I've definitely got to say Warframe's got the best and most welcoming community. So I think the next mode that I'd like to move on to would be the Railjack mode. I think Railjack, the way it's set up, it reminds me so much of Sea of Thieves, and I think that mode is just begging to add PvP mode into it. Just the fact that you'd be able to board enemy ships and take out the crews from the inside. I'm not really sure about how you would do it, how many teams there would be max. I mean, I think you could probably have like 3 or 4 teams fighting each other. You may be able to do like a 2v2 skirmish style match, but the main goals are, of course, being, taking out the opponent's ships, their Railjacks. If you wanted to only do 4 players, you theoretically could do 4 players. Each player has their own respective AI crew that they have recruited, and do it that way. That way, it's not so hard on the engine. But then you'd be running 4 Railjacks. I mean, I guess you'd be running 4 Railjacks either way. So I think that'd probably be the best way now that I think about it out loud. But I really do think that Railjacks are missing something, and I feel like this is that something that could really push them over the edge, that make a lot more people willing to try a Railjack mode. Objectively speaking, the only problem I can see arising from that is that some people have been playing so long. Like, I know I joined in a game the other day where someone's Railjack was extremely high powered. I noticed I got on their cannons and was like, man, this is a nice ship. They were one-shotting a lot of different enemies and stuff. And I think another idea that you could do is similar, like I said, since it already reminds me of Sea of Thieves, you could pull an idea from Sea of Thieves and do like a safer seas, kind of differentiate it, put like a level cap basically. That way that you didn't go in and just get absolutely collapsed by level 30 Railjacks and you're sitting there at level 2 Railjack, you know what I mean? Alrighty, and before we move on to this last idea, if you guys haven't already, if you guys will leave a like for me, and if you think it's earned it, perhaps sub to the channel. We would love to have you here. So let's move on to my last idea, and I think it's a pretty bold one. I think, like I said, it will fit great in the game if executed properly. And basically what it is, and I know I'm going to have people click off as soon as I say this word, but it's Gambit. I was a huge fan of Gambit in Destiny 2, and I was really, really sad to see how it was treated. I didn't feel like it got nearly the love it deserved. A lot of people say that they've abandoned Crucible in Destiny, and I can see that. Every time I signed into a Crucible match, man, I said, I hate my life, man. Why am I playing this? And if it wasn't for the, dailies, the bounties and stuff, I wouldn't have played Crucible at all. But Gambit, I could play Gambit all day long. So I hear you asking, those of you who didn't hate Gambit and stuck around for this far, how could you possibly put Gambit and make it work into Warframe? And so far I have two ideas basically. And Gambit would only work in the open world. I feel like you could put it in Duviri as well as Ord Vallis. And the idea is this. In Duviri, you would run 2 separate teams of 4 competing against each other to race to the boss, just like in Gambit. They would be running in the Undercroft, basically kind of like Circuit. What you would do is you would have them racing to complete each wave as fast as they possibly could up to wave 10. Every wave would give them a decree. Every 3 waves would give them a decree that would debuff the enemy team. And debuffs would be stuff like you could summon 2 Void Angels simultaneously, kind of like blockers. You could siphon the other team's energies. There are other things. I want to say that perhaps eventually you could invade the other team, especially down in the Undercroft. But once you invade, you would have that cap, just like in Destiny, of the max amount of kills you can get is 4. Or you can, I think it was 4 in Destiny. A team wipe, basically. You can't do any more than that. And you'd have like a 25-second timer. It would be much shorter than Destiny's timer. I think I hadn't played Destiny in a little while now. I can't remember how long their timer is for invasions. Maybe it's 20 seconds. It might be 20 seconds. I'm not sure. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But basically, after you got past Wave 9, you would be transported to the Aura Worm's lair, and then your team would start that boss fight. And that would be the beginning of the end. That would be your prime evil, if you will. The Aura Worm would be able to spawn in 4 different elemental variations: ice, fire, toxic, and radiation. And the one thing that made me think of Gambit and Duviri is the alchemy missions that you do in the Undercroft, where you have to throw the different elemental flask at the cauldron while it rotates, and the more you fill it up, the faster it rotates, and that's how you know you're closer to the end. I don't think people will really want to do that every wave. I feel like that reminds me a lot of Gambit, though, banking modes and such. The other location I had in mind was Old Valis. I think it would work. It could possibly work in Deimos or Cetus. I'm just not really sure how, because I think Eidolons for sure would be a cool boss to fight as a primeval, but I'm not really sure how you could really keep the two teams separate. Old Valis is a little more complicated because it's a lot like Cetus, but the idea is that you would have 4 separate teams entering a Corpus compound. The doors on the outside of this compound will not open for the opposing team. That way you could prevent griefing and spawn killing of the opposing team. So in this scenario, what you would do is you would have a mini Corpus dungeon consisting of 9 rooms. Every third room, just like in Duviri, there would be a terminal in the room after they clear the enemies out of that room that would allow them to either get buffs for their squad or debuff the opposing team. And debuffs would be things like activating turrets in the opposing team's dungeon that would deal cold damage, thus slowing the opposing team down and giving them a big advantage. You could add blockers. You could add the ability to summon a variety of different Eximus that would also work to slow the opposing team down. You could activate laser grids, as well as closing and locking doors in their dungeons that would slow them down even further until they would clear out the blockers. After you finish the 9th room, just like in Duviri, you would be transported to the Prophet Taker's Temple, in which you would fight a variation of the Prophet Taker. He, of course, could spawn the same rotation of different elemental variations. I really like the arena idea a lot, just because Duviri, it really has that old kingdom style feel, and a lot of the way the characters are presented, I can see them kind of sitting in the stands cheering while you're doing the Colosseum. Now I think Face Off, from what I've heard, is a little bit like Gambit, and I haven't got to play it yet. I haven't finished 1999, but from what I've heard, it's a race to see who can get to the end of their objectives first, which I think is cool. I think it's a good addition to the game. I do hope eventually they'll add another Gambit style game mode like I've presented here. Ultimately, if they don't, I mean, I'm not super busted up about it. There are times, sure, I want to play PvP in Warframe, but I mean, for the most part, Warframe's gameplay is so fun. The narrative is so good. I mean, it doesn't necessarily need PvP, and I think I've heard people tell me before that it's there. It's serviceable for people who do want to play it. But that's going to do it for me, guys. You guys let me know down in the comments what you think about my ideas, if you want to see them actually come to the game, and what you think about PvP in Warframe. I will catch you guys in the stars.